1. Welcome to the David the Dog Trainer podcast, episode 43.
43.
Okay, just to be totally honest with everybody, we did kind of skip a week and we still haven't caught up with it yet, but we will catch up with it.
Okay.
It will happen still.
It will happen.
We will not go this year without having 52 episodes.
Yes. We're so close.
So we're very close. We had some technical difficulties with the computer a couple of weeks ago, which is why we're on the new computer right now, and we still have to make up for that time. We actually did sit down to record the episode, and it just literally did not work.
Yeah.
It wouldn't turn on. Nothing worked. We had to just call it a day.
Yeah.
So here we are. We're on 43. We should be on 44, but we will be on 44 soon.
Yes.
Josh, what's new?
Not a whole lot. This week has been the week of catching up with all the editing from the last 2 weeks of craziness.
Nice.
I went to a show on Saturday. Came out of Mosh retirement.
Body Snatcher.
Yeah, for Body Snatcher, my boys from Florida. If you like heavy music, check them out. But and that was a horrible idea because I am 32 years old, and it took me about 4 days to recover from that. So I should probably stay in retirement.
Do some stretching.
Yeah, I should have.
Get prepared. Limber up a little bit.
Yeah, someone kicked me in my bad knee.
Can't have that.
Actually, I'm surprised you can't see the bruise, but it
Can't
hurts.
have that.
Yeah. Other than that, it's been a pretty chill week. How about you?
Likewise. So I don't have much new to report. Our new space is pretty much finished. We're going to be conducting lessons out of there within the next few days, which is exciting.
Oh.
Aside from that, still got this little idiot over here. Waffles is still hanging out, doing waffle things. We're at about 2 weeks with him now, I think. Something like that.
Yeah.
I think we've had him for about 2 weeks now. He's still doing well. We haven't had really any issues with him. I think so far this entire time we've had him, we've had maybe 2 accidents in the house, and they were totally our fault.
Yeah.
He's really coming along.
Yeah, like I was saying, he looks like he's opened up quite a bit.
Yeah, he's getting a lot more comfortable, and I've honestly avoided doing too much training with him outside of the training that is just like real life.
Yeah.
For the sake of I really want to see his attitude come up a little bit, because he was a kind of like a puppy mill dog, if you will.
Yeah.
He came from some Amish breeder. He was very genetically timid. Now, let me clarify something real quick here, because a lot of people will look at stuff like that. They'll be like, the history of the dog, the Amish did something to him that makes him timid, this, that. No, this has nothing to do with any sort of neglect or any sort of abuse or anything like that. Not saying it wasn't a neglectful situation, right? But the issue and the reason why a lot of those dogs turn out a little bit more fearful or a little bit more timid is because of how poorly they're bred, right? So when you look at the kind of nature of how we breed dogs, there's a lot that goes into responsible breeding. And listen, I'm no breeding expert by any means, but I do know enough about it to understand how it works, where when they're breeding these dogs together from a reputable breeder, they're going to look at the lineage of every single dog they're breeding together back generations, 4, 5, 6, 7 generations. And they're going to be able to say, this dog's parents and this dog's parents and this dog's parents and this dog's parents and the dog itself are all genetically sound, right? They don't have massive fear issues. They don't have massive anxiety issues. Their hips are good. Their joints are good. Their coats and markings and all of that are true to the breed, right? And they're only going to take those dogs that not only physically look good, but are genetically and emotionally sound and breed them together. So you get higher likelihood that you're going to have a stable dog out of that litter, right? The issue with a lot of the puppy mills is they're not going off of that. All they're going off of is the physical looks side of things. And this is why certain breeds, particularly German Shepherds, I see all the time, that are backyard bred all the time and are some of the most anxious, neurotic, fearful dogs that you'll ever see, is because they just go off looks. Oh, this dog looks like a German Shepherd and this dog looks like a German Shepherd, so we're going to breed them together, and we're not going to care about the genetic soundness of the dog, so we're just going to create a bunch more genetically unsound German Shepherds. Right? And that's kind of how this process works. So in his case, right, he is a little bit more of a genetically timid dog, right? And those are things you have to be aware of, and you're not going to completely change, but you can make significantly better over time. So through a lot of motivation work that we're doing with him, through him having a clear expectation and us giving good leadership and stuff like that, what happens is we get a dog more focused on us and less focused on the things surrounding them that are scaring them, and it allows them to open up into their own a little bit. So we're seeing his confidence start to shoot up. We're seeing his motivation start to shoot up. And once it hits a point where I feel like, we are skewing on the side of starting to lack a little bit of control because he's so confident, then I'll go in and kind of really focus on more of the formal training so we can communicate a little bit more effectively with him.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how the process works, and that's kind of my game plan overall with this dog. Like I said, we're still doing food stuff. Like when I do mealtime and stuff, I'm shaping his positions and everything. And I had wanted a couple of days ago to start the prong collar with him, but I think, like I said, we're going to hold off just a little bit longer on that because, frankly, we're not having issues where I desperately need to jump into it just yet because of what we talked about in the last episode, which is I've set all the ground rules. I've taught him what's okay, what's not okay. I'm teaching him to do nothing, just like, again, he's up here kind of chilling, laying down over there. And I have a means of disciplining him if he does otherwise. So, for example, a minute ago, he's sitting over there on the rug, and he was getting kind of antsy, and he starts kind of trying to pluck at the strands on the rug itself.
Yeah.
So I was able to go over there and discipline him for that, so he realized we didn't want him to do it, and they stopped. I don't need training from the standpoint of commands to stop that. I don't need to tell him sit down, stay, anything like that.
No.
I just need to tell him, hey, don't do that. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. I guess I'll just nap.
Yeah.
And that's typically how it works. Losing my breath. Then you can equate that to different dogs that we work with that have things like, say, kennel anxiety or separation anxiety and stuff like that. And a lot of people, same deal, think we need to do all this training. We need to do all of these crate commands and this and that.
Yeah.
Where in actuality, you need to just isolate some of those neurotic tendencies your dog gets into, like pawing at the crate door, chewing at the crate door, stuff like that. And a lot of times once you interrupt that behavior, they try something else, which is nothing.
Yep.
So
if you can see.
Chilling, doing nothing. Cool. Anything else new?
No. You just packed a lot of information in the first 9 minutes, man. You just went off.
7 minutes and 30 seconds. Bam.
Hitting you with it.
Hit you with it. All right. Okay, cool. So today, what we're going to be doing is this is going to be a little bit of like a Q&A episode. Last week, I did a post just asking for questions, looking for some topics to talk about and stuff. So we're going to get into some of those here and kind of see what we get.
Cool.
Hold on. Allergies are in full swing today.
Yeah. I guess I could add to the breeder thing because we got...
yeah, what's the deal? Where's the breeder you got him from?
She's in Tennessee.
Yeah?
Yeah, but he has a... he was born with a heart murmur, so we had to let her know.
Sure.
And now his parents are no longer being bred. So
yeah.
And I mean that's the responsible thing.
What was the reasoning for that? Oh, the heart murmur.
Yeah, the heart murmur, because it's a genetic thing. So
that means there is a trait that was passed down somewhere in those lines. So as opposed to risk it, right, they typically will just eliminate, okay, cool, we're not going to breed that dog anymore because he has a gene that could pop up at some point and look like this. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And not only for ethical reasons, but from the breeder standpoint, if the quality of their product, which is the dog, starts decreasing and they start putting out more and more dogs like that, that decreases their value as a breeder overall.
Yeah, exactly. You know? So it's just another reason, yeah.
There's a lot that goes into it, you know? So
that's the difference between breeders and puppy mills.
Yeah. All right. So let me pull up some questions here.
Okay.
Man, I'm so glad we're doing this episode too because like anytime I get questions and stuff like that, I leave them marked unread in my phone.
Oh, you have so many unread.
Yeah, so I have all these unread things that I'm just absolutely sick of seeing.
We're clearing out his inbox.
Clear it out. Clear it out. Where's it at? Here we go. Okay. This is a YouTube comment. This is on a video we did a long time ago, which is my dog won't stop going potty in the house at night.
Okay.
Tyler Tryon asks, my dog is 5 and goes through phases where he will be really good for like a month and then poop or pee in the house every day for a month. He only pees and poops in the house when he knows we are gone. He will not do it when we are outside, but if we drive away even a few minutes, he will do his business. He never does this when we are home. He will go anywhere. He will poop in his yard. Yes, we have spoken with the vet about the right size crate. He will poop in the bedroom. He has even peed on our bed.
Ooh.
It's rough.
Yeah, that's
Whenever
rough.
he goes outside and we are home, we reward him with a treat. He knows where he is supposed to go and even knows the command, go potty. When he was 2, we figured he had separation anxiety, so we got another dog. They're actually half brothers. The younger dog was potty trained literally within a couple of days and never has had an issue ever. The doggy door is always available to them, as we never lock it. We have done a lot of positive reinforcement training and gotten advice from a lot of trainers that all seem to say the same things, but none of it works. Have any unique takes on this situation?
I think this is the first time we've talked about doggy doors, so...
Yeah, so here's the thing, right? Potty training when you're not home is such a tricky one, you know? Because behavioral issues in general, when you're not home, there's only so much you can do about it.
Yeah.
Right? And what I find is that the difference between the dogs that do really well with this and the dogs that don't do really well with this is how quickly we rush into the process, right? So, for example, one thing I've always told everybody, the rule we kind of follow, is dogs should be crated at nighttime until they're about a year old, and when you're not home until the dog is about 2 years old. Now, this is not a hard rule, right? I personally still crate my dogs when I'm not home for the sake of not needing to worry about what they're getting into, not needing to worry about what they're doing, right? And because there's multiple of them, not worrying about their interactions when I'm not home and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the idea behind that rule of 2 years is that 2 years, typically speaking, is enough time where if you're training your dog from a puppy through then, in 2 years, with supervised time in the house, you should be able to establish all of the rules, and the dog should know what's expected and what's not expected of them.
Yeah.
Right? From a potty training standpoint, from a behavioral standpoint, from a getting into things standpoint, et cetera, et cetera. In 2 years, you're going to have been able to catch that behavior enough times where you can make it such an ingrained habit that they just don't do those things.
Yeah.
Right?
Makes sense, yeah.
Correlating it into this situation, when I hear things like doggy door, right? Not that I have an issue with a doggy door. I'm sure that for some people, it's a very sufficient, useful thing to have the dog understand going in and out. But when I hear that, the first thing that comes into my head is, are we using this doggy door as a kind of workaround to teaching the dog to go outside, right?
Yeah.
Are we saying, oh, wow, well, my dog's having accidents in the house and I'm missing it, right? I'm missing their signs that they need to go out. So I'm just going to install a doggy door because they should just know then, well, I'll just go outside, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Anytime you make things optional like that,
Yeah.
here's what happens. In the dog's head, they have to weigh that decision every time of like our house, for example. It's not like the biggest house in the world, but it's kind of a long walk to get to certain parts of it.
Yeah.
You know? And if my dog is up here and it's a freaking, you got to go all the way down the hall and then all the way downstairs and then all the way around through the kitchen to the back door to go outside, my dog is going to debate, is this worth it for me? Do I really want to make that, do I really want to go all the way out if I could just get away with going right there and dad doesn't catch it and it's not a big deal?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It starts turning into this optional debate that they have. And especially when you get into winter months or it's raining or this or that, they're just going to go in the house then at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So when I'm seeing housebreaking issues, the first thing I need to do is I need to just gain control of the situation, right? That means immediately starting right now, you need to pretend you have a puppy again. And you need to, whatever you do, forget wanting to let the dog out when you're not home. You need to make sure that dog doesn't have an accident in the house for like a month, right? Or 2 months, and then 3 months, and then 4 months, and then 5 months. And here's the thing, right? If this has become a habit for the dog, regardless of why they're doing it, that they're good for a couple months, then they do it every day for a month, then they're good for a couple months, then they do it every day for a month, you may have to go back to, for a year or two, not having that dog loose when you're not home to redevelop that muscle of I just don't go in the house.
Yeah.
I would probably eliminate the doggy door and make sure the dog is supervised at all times so you could confirm that they're going when you take them outside.
Yeah.
Right? And then once you've developed that muscle, here's what you need to do, right? When you go to let the dog loose in the house, you can't just go from totally crated to free range of the entire house. Because if you look at the way dogs develop associations of not going to the bathroom in the house, right?
Yeah.
Or in certain areas, I should say. They don't go in places they perceive as like their den. So that's why we use a crate, right? Small crate like this, dog is in it. I don't want to go in here because I'm stuck laying with it. That's gross. They don't like that, right? So we need to figure out what's the next stepping stone that helps the dog to make that space from here to here. And then from here to here, and then from here to here, right? So maybe next step is you find a room or a kitchen or a bathroom or something like that where there's nothing that they're going to be able to grab and get into, obviously, and that they're going to perceive a larger space as their den that they're not going to go in. And then you incrementally increase that and increase that and increase that. And here's the thing. This is what people don't like to hear. It's a long process. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
You know, you're not just going to go from having this issue like on and off all the time to it fixed in a month.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to be a process of you need to just accept the fact that this dog has learned it can get away with this. Again, regardless of why they're doing it.
Yeah.
And if you don't want your dog going to the bathroom in the house, you need to get some real solid consistency of the dog not having accidents. And that means going back to a crate for a while. So that's kind of the long and short answer of it.
Yeah.
You know, as far as why they're doing it because they're getting away with it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's why dogs do anything. And the second you notice that issue, you know, where did it stem from? It stemmed from them getting away with it and us probably giving them that freedom too soon, too quick, right? Us trying to use other Band-Aids to solve it, like the doggy door, like getting another dog, you know, to try to eliminate separation anxiety issues.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this to like be like, oh, screw you, you're doing everything wrong, because these are, you know, normal things that people will think in these types of situations.
Yeah.
But they're still the wrong solutions, right? And because we're trying to Band-Aid them with that solution, or we're unintentionally Band-Aiding them with that solution, you're not going to get past it. And you need to take a step back and realize, okay, everything we've been doing right now, it's not working.
Yep.
Push it to the side. We're starting from scratch. And again, this is why I still crate my dogs when I'm not home.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to deal with all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, not
They're
at all.
fine in the crate. They're in crates right now downstairs.
Yeah.
They're totally fine with it. It's not a problem.
Yeah. Bender's in the crate right now.
You know? So I don't want to have to deal with that because I know how hard it is. And I know that also you get into, I personally believe some dogs are, like we were talking about genetics, some dogs are genetically more or less likely to be so curious and want to get into stuff. You know?
Yeah.
Where some will have an issue with it, some won't have an issue with it. You know? And I think that when you start getting into some of these more independent, confident, rambunctious dogs and stuff like that, those are the ones that left long enough will try to occupy their time with other things.
Yeah. Yeah. Bender's one of those.
Yeah.
He's just, mind's constantly going. He's got to
Constantly.
do something, you know?
Constantly.
So it's just such a peace of mind.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. Everybody feels so bad about it. They're so, I don't want to crate them. Oh God, how long? You know, like, and then a lot of people, it's like, oh well, like we leave the house for 6 hours, so we have to have a dog walker come somewhere in the middle. It's like, you don't though.
Yeah.
I tell them, listen, I have these conversations. I was like, if you want to do it, go for it. Right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna, you know, it's your choice to make.
Yeah.
But you don't. I tell people constantly, you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
You don't. You know.
Yeah.
Go play ball with them when you get home. You know, give them some
it'll be
extra
fine.
exercise.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly.
It ain't gonna be a problem.
And my big thing too is like normally right now I would be editing or on my computer or whatever, and Bender's just sleeping there anyway while I'm doing that. So he's literally doing the same thing that he would be doing anyway, just in a crate.
You are correct. All right, let's see if we can find our next question here. Starting off strong. Where can I find it? Here we go.
Did they say they had like So the dogs were out, and they had the doggy door like unlocked while they were like gone.
I think so. I don't know if they got into that much of specifics with it.
Yeah, that'd make me so nervous. Just have, like your dog being out in the backyard or whatever.
All right. So next question here. This is from Jordan. Jordan is somebody that used to live in Cleveland that I helped her with a couple of her dogs before, and now she actually lives in the Savannah area. She's got a new dog. She's actually messaged me about a couple times. So let's get a little backstory first here.
All right.
So she's got this puppy that she got from, it sounds like some sort of, same deal, like Amish situation, puppy mill situation.
Yeah.
Again, an extremely genetically fearful dog.
Yeah.
And I made a post on my personal Instagram about this maybe a month ago or something like that with some videos and stuff she had sent me of this dog that basically would just sit in its kennel and just shake and wouldn't move. And if you put a leash on the dog would just pancake itself on the ground and and the dog just wouldn't open up, right? And she was basically like, I don't know what to do in order to help move this dog along faster. It's not interested in treats. It's not interested in petting, this, that, whatever. And I told her, just like what we talked about with this dude, I was like, you got to just put a leash on the dog and get the dog moving. You got to start putting the dog in situations where you're forcing it to come out of its shell a little bit. If he doesn't want to come out of his crate because he's too scared, we have to make him come out of his crate because that'll help him overcome that fear. If he doesn't want to walk on the leash because he's too scared, he's got to start walking on the leash to get him past that fear.
Yeah.
She started doing some of those things, got him past it fairly successfully pretty quickly, right? Again, part of this is a time issue of, like we were talking about with him, letting them open up and develop into their own a little bit. Okay. But those fears that we see right away, we have to address them, right? We have to work them through those things as quickly as possible so it doesn't become like a big problem.
Yeah.
So whatever. So she asked a couple follow-up questions recently, and we're going to get into those here. Okay. So, question. He's doing very well with coming out of his kennel, but will not come out of his kennel on his own. If he goes in his kennel, he refuses to come out for anything, including high-value food. He is not aggressive, but I have to put a leash on him to get him out. I could leave him out, but at the same time, he sometimes eats in his kennel, depending on what pet sitting dogs I have. And he goes in there during the day because I don't know if I can completely trust him yet. That goes back to the conversation we just had. He should be in it, obviously, during the day. We don't want to not put him in the kennel, obviously.
Yeah.
It's almost too much his safe place because he refuses to come out when he goes in there. I should add where I'm letting him stay out more, but I still don't want him hating his kennel, and when he is out, he mostly hides under my bed and occasionally trots out and watches everybody. I'm wondering what I should do about this. Okay, so this is an interesting conversation, right? Because here's the thing. We had our immediate issues with this dog, which were we couldn't get the dog to move in general, primarily on the leash, right? By teaching him to face the fear with the leash, we got him to a place where when that leash is on, we have control, right? Now we're in a problem where, okay, we solved that problem, but now when we don't have the leash on, we don't have control. This is normal, right? So here's the thing. Like I talked about with this dude, the leash should, excuse me, I'm getting myself hyped up. The leash should be on all the time.
Yeah.
The leash should almost never not be on, right? Yeah. With this dog, this leash has literally not been off of him since he has been in this house unless he is in a crate.
Yeah.
Right. And the reason for that is because that's my only way to communicate with him.
Yeah.
Of course he's not going to come out of the crate because he'd rather be. Now, this doesn't mean he's traumatized or super scared or anything, but he'd rather be in his kennel. He's like, hey, this is my safe spot. You got other fucking weird dogs here. And, we don't have any communication or control or anything established yet. So I'm just going to stay in here. I don't want to come out. Right. And I always say, until we have our come command taught, and this is where formal functional obedience commands and stuff like that come into play, until we have those things taught, the dog is not going to come out.
Yeah.
Right? So what we need to do is we need to look at what do we need to get the dog to do in this moment, right? Here's the thing. If he wants to sit in his kennel and we don't need to get him out right now, you can just leave the door open and let him sit in there, and I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah.
But if you need to get him out to go to the bathroom, if you need to get him out to go hang out in another room with you or something like that, you just have to make sure the leash is on in those situations until you start actually training the dog. And again, sometimes it's a long process, but we've already confirmed when it's on, we have that control. It's not an issue when we have it on, right? So we got to make sure that we're working through that successfully like that. And again, that's where you get into back ties and stuff like that. We need to start shaping the pictures we want. So if we then have the conversation of, okay, cool. So when he's in the crate, he doesn't want to come out of the crate, right? And we don't really need to get him out of the crate, but it would be nice to get him developing this association of just hanging out in different spaces in the house.
Yeah.
That's great. Cool. Again, leash on, take him to another spot, back time somewhere, and just have him chill there for a little bit and start developing that muscle of, wow, I hang out for 2 hours next to the couch.
Yeah.
Then I hang out for 2 hours in the kitchen. And then I hang out for 2 hours over here. And again, it will get better. So he, the first couple of days, developed an association with this spot in between our coffee table and our couch. Right?
Yeah.
That was like his spot where if he was free to do his own thing, he would put himself there, he would park himself there, and same deal. He did not want to come out of that space. I can call him out all day long.
Yeah.
Same exact thing as what she's seeing right here.
Yeah.
Also, just to add some additional context to things, there have been a lot of videos I've gotten of this dog of him just hanging out in the yard, and he's not scared anymore like in those first videos.
Yeah.
He just would prefer to hang out in the kennel.
Yeah.
And again, he knows that you don't have a way to get him out when that leash isn't on, so he's protesting. And you're essentially teaching him to blow you off every time you try to get him out of it, and you're not in a position to back him up, which is why the leash should be on all the time in those situations, right? So start shaping the pictures you want. If you want him to hang out in this place, back time there and get him used to hanging out there. If you want him to hang out over here, back time over there, get him used to hanging out over there. And you will see that stuff continue to improve. Yeah. But with dogs like that, you hit a point where you realize you have to start doing some formal training with them to help really get them past some of these issues even better. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the idea behind this, is it's not a problem, right? But you have to shape the pictures you want, right? Mm-hmm. And this is why with any young dog or any new dog, they have a leash on all the time. That is your only control that you have.
It's your lifeline.
You know? It is. And it's funny. So I did an assessment with a family the other day, like an in-home assessment. Yeah. And they have this one dog, and then they had an older dog. And the older dog was just barking its head off. It never really had any formal training or anything. He was kind of being annoying, and we couldn't really talk over the dog barking. Some loud. Yeah. So I told him, I was like, grab a leash, right? Put a leash on the dog, right? They put a leash on the dog. Immediately he shut up. Right?
Wow.
Not because there was any training done or we gave any corrections or anything like that. Yeah. But the second we put him on the leash, he was like, oh, wait, I'm now under control. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm not in this position of making all these decisions on my own. Yeah. I'm not in this position of running around and checking this person out and doing this and doing that, because right now I'm on a leash and I need to pay attention to who's at the end of the leash. Right? Okay. So control is everything. And again, that's not the solution is not have the dog on a leash for the rest of its life. The solution is, as we're working towards the goal of having a trained dog that we can communicate with properly, we position ourselves to have as much control as possible. Mm-hmm. And that's your only way to do it. So just reiterating that point, right? That control is everything with dogs, right? Dogs always know it. Somebody is in control of them. Right? And if we're not in control of them, they're left to do what they want to do. Yeah. Right? And then there are some dogs that are a little genetically fearful, again, that as we get further along in the training, that's where we proof our come command. If they don't want to come out of the crate, we need to then work through that hurdle of teaching them willingly on their own without this leash pulling them out. You have to get up and walk towards me. And once we get compliance in those types of situations, we really start seeing a shift in their mentality of like, oh, okay, cool, I really just need to listen to this person overall. Yeah. So that's kind of the solution for that. All right.
You're going to be out of breath by the end of this one.
Seriously, I got to reply to these people, let them know we're answering it on the podcast. Mm-hmm. All right, next one. We got one down here somewhere. Loading. Here it is. All right, this is a long one. All right, this person asks, I would like to ask about a behavior problem I see in my own dog. 9-year-old male German Shepherd. We have a house with a garden. We play in the garden every day. I try to tire him out. Also, I give food by hand every day by doing obedience practice. Because he had a food bowl aggression problem, this has decreased it a lot. But he has aggression. He wants to control who enters my room. Because since the first day I got him, he stayed in my room almost every day and had little contact with other members of the family. Sometimes he snarls when other family members try to approach him. And we played in the garden the other day. Then I took him into the house. I took him to my room and wanted to give him his toy, but he didn't want to. He made a growling sound, then he laid on the ground. A while ago, he got all the way to my brother's feet and glared directly at him. I think it was for dominance, but it was like he was taking my brother under him. Fortunately, I was there and intervened. I think there's something like dominance in this dog. And he is so calm in the garden and loves the garden so much. The dog really likes the garden.
Yeah.
He stays in my room when I'm at work. We are 6 people in my house, but only I am the one to take care of him because he growls, he could bite, and act dominant to others. He bit us a few times before. What can we do?
Oh, boy.
That's a loaded one.
Yeah.
That is a loaded one. Just by the looks of it, obviously, there's probably nothing we can do because I believe this guy's in another country. But so here's the thing: questions like this are so hard, right? Because and there's actually there's a lot of chatter in the dog training world of people that get really frustrated when they get questions like this. Because here's the thing: How can we be expected to there's no way we could just give a solution to this that's going to fix it, right?
Yeah.
All we could do is we could use a question like this as a good talking point to help people understand dogs better overall.
Yeah.
But it's not going to do much to help this individual person, right? When you're dealing with issues like this, you need professional help.
Yeah.
Right? Or you need to realize that there are dogs out there that are well past some people's skill set. Mm-hmm. Especially when you're dealing with power breeds, extremely dominant dogs, and dogs that are a mix of both of those that are having aggression issues.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the success rate on people being able to work through and manage those types of situations is very low depending on their situation.
Yeah.
You get into, this is a family of 6 in a house, right? Yeah. You're dealing with a dog that's basically isolated to this guy's room. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like that's why they go to this garden all the time, is probably because the dog's isolated there all the time because it can't be loose with the family.
Yeah.
And then we take the dog out to the garden to try to let him burn off energy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? that's kind of the vibe I'm getting off of this.
Yeah.
And the issue with doing that is because the dog is isolated from stuff so much because of these issues get worse because of that isolation. The dog develops more intense territorial associations of these particular areas, specifically that room, right? And they become much more likely to defend that territory towards anything that may be seen as a threat, which is anything else in that house, it sounds like, right? Now, again, I'm probably paraphrasing all of this and kind of drawing my own conclusions based on what I think this guy is talking about. But these are really tough situations, right? So, root of this problem here, again, this probably is to some extent a dominance issue, right? I don't throw those words around all the time. I don't talk about needing to dominate your dogs and stuff because it's not like that stuff is... I don't think it's necessarily as important as a lot of people think it is. But when you're dealing with situations like this, everything to dogs is hierarchy, right? Yeah. Everything to dogs is somebody is, like we were talking about in the last question, somebody is controlling something at all times. Yeah. And when our dogs view us as somebody that is weak and not handling situations appropriately, they over time develop that association of needing to do it themselves.
Yep.
Right? So this usually starts when the dog is young, right? It usually starts, we get a cute dog, right? Mm-hmm. We take them all these different places. We feed them all these treats. We give them all these toys. We have everybody come and pet them, and we don't realize what these dogs biologically need, which is training, which is discipline, which is appropriate socialization as opposed to smothering them with affection and stuff like that all the time. Yeah. And we don't recognize the signs that our dog needs advocated for, right? So what happens is we have a lot of family members. We have a lot of people. We have this, that, where the dog is put in a lot of vulnerable positions where people are going and taking the dog's toys or trying to play with them when the dog is agitated or approaching and trying to pet and this and that. We don't read those signals and we don't create those boundaries for our dog. Yeah. And our dog over time starts developing the association that they need to handle those things. And they start doing it by growling. They start doing it by snapping. They start protecting their food bowl. They start protecting their toys, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And it creates problems, right? Then you get into, because these dogs are power breeds and very dominant to begin with, they're going to be more likely to try to test that dominance towards people right off the rip, right? So you get a young dog that, because everything is hierarchy, because we're not taking that leadership role when they're really small, they're going to start challenging us a little bit and being like, am I more dominant than this person, right? Do I have a stronger willpower than this person, right? And the second they make that association that they are with their owner, it's so tricky to reverse.
Yeah.
Almost impossible to reverse in some cases, you know? So, you know, you get into like, how do you solve situations like this? And it comes from, typically speaking, an outside person needs to develop a relationship with the dog where they are clearly in charge of things. They need to set the groundwork. They need to build the muscle memory with the dog of the dog being compliant to a human. Because right now, this dog is not compliant to anybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's fact of the matter. This dog knows it's in charge of things.
Yeah.
And the only thing holding it back from being in charge of everything is walls, barriers, us putting them other places, keeping them away from these problematic things, right?
Yeah.
And the frustration of all of that is what creates the aggression.
Yeah.
Right? So we need to develop the association that the dog is compliant to a human being. And fuck the toys, fuck the treats, fuck all of that kind of stuff. It's not about that. It's about this dog realizing that somebody is not going to take their shit.
Yeah.
Right? Once you have that established with them, the only possible way to transfer it back to the owner is if that person is willing to do essentially a 100% complete reboot of their relationship with the dog, which means anything they think they know about this dog, toss it out the window, right? Accept the knowledge of the blueprint of how that new person created that relationship with the dog, right? So most good trainers will be able to look at a dog they're working with and be like, these are the things I did chronologically from A to B that helped me establish this relationship of being more dominant than the dog, right? And you teach the owner then how to replicate those things, right? And you prep them for the fact that along the way, what will happen is because that dog has already an association with them of them being weaker than them, that they will face pushback along that way. And you have to prep them for how to address that pushback as it comes up, right? And again, you have all sorts of different caliber of dog as far as where they sit on that hierarchy of like how pushy they are, how confident they are, how much of these behaviors are just coming from a fearful place. Because in some cases, and especially with German Shepherds and stuff, because of how they're bred, like we talked about at the beginning, in some of these cases, a lot of the aggression that we see is just coming from the dog being scared. They're really not that head honcho dog, right? They're really just a big scaredy cat, and they're not seeing us advocate for them, which is why they're taking it into their own hands. And those are the easier ones to work through, and I would say that's the majority of the ones that we see. Right? The majority of the ones we see is the dog's scared. We're not seeing their signals. We're not able to alleviate that responsibility of handling those issues for them, right? So they start acting out on their own. And those ones we could adjust that relationship pretty quickly. But the confident, pushy, dominant ones, man, those are the tricky ones.
Yeah.
Those are the tricky ones for that reason, right? So that's how we would work through these types of issues, right? But I prep everybody for, you have to ask yourself sometimes, right? I have this conversation with people that call me that have serious aggression cases all the time, right? We work with a lot of aggression. We work with a lot of behavioral issues, and we do kind of specialize in that to some extent, right? But I would say that we don't get as many true deep-rooted aggression cases as you would think, because there's not as many out there as you think, and two, because we vet those people so heavily. Like when I have these conversations with these people over the phone, we're so black and white about it. We're so black and white about this is how hard this is going to be, and having that conversation of, is this the right dog for you? You know, because a lot of the things you need to do with dogs like that, it's not what people usually sign up for. When they get a dog, they don't want to have to manage and do all of these different things. And they don't want to have this different type of relationship with the dog and stuff. Yeah. You know?
They just want the perfect being.
Not even perfect, right? They just want a dog they don't have to worry about stuff with, which I get. And that's okay, right? But this stuff is hard for those reasons, you know? And that's how I tend to look at a lot of these situations.
Yeah.
So,
do you feel like it's kind of how this started out is kind of the same thing we were just talking about with the question prior, where the dog didn't want to come out of the certain room and everything, and it was just like just kind of got schmoozed over and the dog was allowed to just stay in that room? Or is there more to it? Like, do you think that's like
elaborate on that? What do you mean?
We were the one before where the dog didn't really want to come out of the crate or just go under her bed and didn't want to go anywhere else in her house. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like that's kind of the same thing that happened with this dog? Like when it was young, like it just wanted to hide in there, and they were like, "Oh, well, he's just scared. Like we'll just let him stay in there," and then it became a problem.
If this is the case of a fearful situation, potentially,
yeah.
But I don't think that's the case, right? I think that in this case, this dog is probably because it was displaying aggressive behaviors, whether because it was fearful or because it was really dominant. They isolated the dog.
Okay, gotcha. Right? Yeah.
The dog didn't willingly stay in the room. Right?
Okay.
They're keeping the dog in the room to keep it away from the rest of the family. Is my my guess.
Yeah.
Right?
That makes sense. Yeah.
So different, right? It's a different situation where that creates all this frustration, which creates the aggression, right? It makes the dog more likely to act out aggressively because they're just so on edge and pissed off all the time because they're being isolated.
That's
right?
true.
Which is why it's a catch-22, because you can't just leave them loose if you don't have training, because there's going to be issues. But if you isolate them, the issues get worse.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do you do about, it's hard. It's like the same deal with dogs that are seriously freaking reactive, It's like people don't walk them, or they walk them at weird hours because they don't want to see triggers, but because the dog never sees triggers, every time they see a trigger, it's this novel thing, which makes their reactivity even worse.
Yeah.
So the only solution for it is immediately starting training so that you could start working through some of those issues more successfully.
Yeah, you can't hide from your problems.
Can't hide from your demons. So that's kind of that. All right, let's see what else we got here. Okay. Another potty training question. You good on battery and everything?
Still doing good.
All right. Potty training question. How does one get their dog to tell them they have to go potty? Or should I not worry about them doing that? You should worry about that.
You should worry about that.
We do want our dog to let us know. So I just had this conversation with a client the other day. So here's the thing. This is past your dog understanding not going to the bathroom in the house when you're not home. This is a separate topic from that, right? This is just the act of how do we take a dog and how do we teach them to let us know in a more clear way, right?
Yeah.
And basically how we do that is we free shape it using successive approximation. Right?
Excessive approximation.
Right? So let me define these couple words here.
Yeah.
So free shaping basically is waiting for a dog to do something, then applying some sort of reinforcer for the dog to do it, to then teach that behavior.
Oh, okay.
For example, if I wanted to teach a down and I wanted to free shape a down, I'd sit here with some treats, I'd just hang out, and I would wait. At some point, my dog's going to lay down.
Gotcha. Okay.
As soon as they lay down, yes, reward.
Boom. Reward.
Right?
Okay.
And same deal. I just wait. I don't give any cues. I don't ask them to do anything. I just wait for them to do it organically. Boom, reward. Right? That's free shaping.
Yeah.
Right? So basically the dog is doing the work without realizing they're doing the work. They're not laying down because they think they're going to get a treat. They're just laying down so I can reward it, which just increases the likelihood of them doing it the next time.
Gotcha.
Right? Successive approximation. Rewarding steps along the way to get to the end goal. Right? Let's take getting onto a bed, for example. Dog's scared of the bed, right? I am going to shape steps along the way of, first I'm going to reward maybe getting one paw on the bed. Maybe that's all they can get.
Okay.
Then I'm going to reward for getting 2 paws on the bed. Then I'm going to reward for getting 3 paws on the bed. Then I'm going to reward for 4 paws on the bed. Then I'm going to reward for being in a sit on the bed and in a down on the bed, et cetera, et cetera. Or another way that I'll see people doing it is with a retrieve, right? There's an object on the ground I want to get my dog to retrieve. I'm going to start off by rewarding them when they move towards the object. Then I'm going to reward them for getting all the way to the object. Then I'm going to start rewarding them for sniffing the object. Then I'm going to start rewarding them for putting their mouth on the object. Then I'm going to wait for them to put their mouth on it and pick it up for a second.
Okay.
Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Every little step. Okay.
Right? So people will use successive approximation for more complex behaviors to make it more digestible to the dog.
Yeah.
Right? So, sometimes it can be really challenging to make your expectation go pick that thing up. and hold it.
Yeah.
Right? So by rewarding steps along the way, you keep your dog engaged and constantly trying to figure out what the thing that we want to get them to do is.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So whatever. So how this correlates to the question of teaching potty training.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to start rewarding steps along the way with letting the dog go outside. Going outside is kind of the reinforcement right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Breathe.
So what I'm going to start with is just, let's say today, I want to start doing this with him. I'm going to wait until anytime he walks near the door. When he walks near the door, I'm going to take him outside. When he walks near the door, I'm going to take him outside. And he has no clue what he's doing, right?
Yeah.
But eventually he's going to start making the correlation that, wow, when I go near this thing, I go outside. Then what I'm going to do, successive approximation here, right? Well, first off, we're using free shaping, right? Him going near the door, we're free shaping him going near the door.
Yeah.
When he starts making that correlation and becoming more conscious of being near the doors, what's getting me rewarded, I'm going to ask a little more. I'm going to reward another step along the way, which is I'm going to wait till he's near the door, then stops, right? Then I'm going to start waiting till he's near the door, stopping and sitting and letting him out. And then you've essentially taught that when they want to go outside, they go near the door, they sit down, and they look at you.
Okay.
Right? So you free shape that behavior using successive approximation for it.
Okay.
And then the only other key to it is making the correlation that it's for potty time, not playtime. So when you go to let the dog out, you can't let them out loose and let them just run around and be a wild man. You have to take them out on a leash to go to the bathroom, then go back in. That way they know that that cue is only for going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a long process. Sometimes it takes a week or so to do. But that's how we do that.
That's nice.
That's going to be a good clip.
That's a good clip.
Breaking down those terms.
Yes.
All right, we're going to pause this for a second.
Okay.
All right, we're back. Okay, moving on to the next question. This is a question saying, I've been meaning to ask you, do you have any podcasts or training videos on how to help your dog adjust when a dog passes? Good question.
I don't think so.
Good question. We do not. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, touchy subject for a lot of people, obviously, right?
Yeah.
The person that asked this recently had a dog pass away. We've known both of the dogs for quite a while. And it is a good question because it's one that can be answered very simply, but at the same time requires some sensitivity with it, right?
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Long story short, dogs are very in-the-moment creatures, right? They're not the kind of dogs or animals that dwell on the past. They're not the kind of dogs that if something's suddenly gone, they're going to just dwell on it and think about it and stuff like that. Frankly, they're way more adaptable than we think. I used to use the example of if I were to just like die today, right? And my dogs were to go to just somebody new, right? Within, I don't know, probably a week, right? Within a week, they'd be 100,000% past it. But all right, cool. This is my new routine right now, right? We see it every day with board and trains, right? Board and trains come in within a week. They're like, this is my new routine. They're not sitting in their crate thinking about, oh, I wonder what mom's doing at home. You know? Wonder if she's making my favorite pot roast for me for when I get back. Blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, they're just not like that. They don't think like that. They adapt to their environment very, very quickly, right? Now, that's not discrediting that a lot of people see massive changes in their dogs when they lose another animal, right? So then you break into what's the reasoning for it, right? Why is that happening in the first place?
Okay.
What do you think, Josh? Why is it happening?
I mean, there's a big change when there's only one dog compared to two. I mean, they don't have to. I mean, the hierarchy's changed in the pack, maybe. I don't know. Am I in the right direction?
Kind of. That's actually a side topic.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me write that down.
Okay.
Okay. So, the number one reason why we see a change in our dogs when we lose another dog, right?
Okay.
Is because we change.
That's true.
Right?
That's 100% true, yeah. I didn't think of that.
Suddenly we lose a dog. All of those emotions we're feeling
Yeah.
towards the old dog that we lost and all of that like hurt and loss and everything, we take that and we just amplify it and project it onto the dog that's still there.
I see.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why I said sensitive one, because I'm not saying don't be upset, don't be hurt, this, that. That's unrealistic. I get it, right?
Yeah.
But we have to understand how those emotions and our change in behavior that we are displaying towards the dog that's still there will impact them.
Yeah.
Dogs are not designed to carry emotional weight, right? I got really quiet all of a sudden there. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Dogs are not designed to carry all of this emotional weight, right? Of what's okay, what's not okay, deciding things, handling situations on their own, sensing our instability and not knowing what to do with it. I talk about dogs not being able to process complex human emotions, right? So when we project these complex human emotions, our dog is not able to rationalize what they are, so it can create so much anxiety and so much fear, right? So that's kind of, like, long story short, what's going on, right? Now, you brought up a really great second point that I actually didn't even cross my mind initially with this, which is the hierarchy change, right? Yeah. Now, this typically, if we have good control over our dog, does not impact our relationship, right? Because I always say the hierarchy should always be us at the top, family members at the top, dogs underneath, and the dogs underneath are kind of free to mingle around through that hierarchy as we need, as long as we still sit at the top of things, right? Now, the relationship amongst multiple dogs, say we have 4 dogs in the house and we lose one, right? And that one dog at the time was like the head honcho of the pack, right? You may see for a short period of time a little bit of competition amongst the remaining dogs as they refigure out where they go, right? In that kind of social hierarchy with each other. But as long as you're sitting at the top still, you can mitigate that very quickly with no problems. Right? That's why when we see older dogs, right, that say a lot of people have an old dog that gets cancer, gets sick or whatever, right? And the dog becomes very weak and unstable, right? And that dog may have been, for a while, the head honcho of the household, right, as far as the dogs are concerned. And then we'll start seeing a lot of weird stuff where the younger dogs start attacking the old sick dog, or they start singling him out or things like that. And we look at it like, oh, my God, what's going on? But it's because the hierarchy changed. That dog is no longer fit to fill that role. Now, most times when we see problems like that, that takes place in households where we are not in control of things, right? So they're left to decide that of really who's in charge of the household overall, right? But we see stuff like that all the time because of that. But long story short, you have to keep your emotions in check around the dog that's still there, right? It's hard. I understand how difficult it is, right? But if you project those emotions on your new dog, you're going to start seeing a lot of instability come out of them because of it. They need you to help them navigate through those situations. Right? So that's that. All right. Next one.
I think it's a hard one for people because, I mean, nature isn't like actual nature is
it's cruel.
It's very cruel.
100%.
And I think that's just if animals really did have that same feeling, my God, they'd be depressed all the time.
Dude, you're 100% correct. 100% correct. All right, next question here. How do I get my dogs to stop eating food every time I walk away from it? My older dog used to be really good, but he's gotten bad.
Ooh. Gotten bad.
Got to correct the dog. That's okay. Now we get into the easy. I mean, this is like the easy stuff of like, okay, cool. You need to discipline that behavior and you need to start setting it up. One thing I did with my dogs, I've always been a notorious coffee table eater, right? When I lived in Lyndhurst and stuff, like by myself, it was like I'd eat at the coffee table all the time, whatever. And my dogs are always, they're food psychopaths. I always make the joke about. They want every bit of food that is available, right? And they started getting really annoying, just like getting all up in my space and everything. So what did I do? I had all their e-collars on, put my food on the coffee table, and I just left. Walked out of the room, walked into the kitchen, had those e-collars set all the way up, and just kind of peeked around the corner and just waited for one of them to just... The second, nope, bam, got him. Right, that was pretty much it. You gotta set it up, and deliver a correction for it. Trash can is another one we see people with all the time. I'll tell people, take your e-collar, set it up real high, leave the trash can in the middle of the room. If you need to put a little zoom camera on the dog so you can see them or something, just walk on it. Just wait. At some point, they're going to stick their nose in it, and you'll catch it, and you'll start to make that correlation of even when you are not present, these behavioral issues can still go away.
Yep.
Right?
That was an easy one.
Mm-hmm. Let's find the next one here. What else we got? All right, here we go. Okay, so we are introducing a new dog to our house. Our soon-to-be live-in nanny has a dog. Our dog is trained, but how do we keep the environment safe from the get-go? Our dog is still a little weary of other dogs at the house. How do we introduce them, or do we introduce them outside first, then in the house? I'm assuming we'll have to have multiple sessions. And what do we advise the other owner of? She knows our dog has a history with other dogs and people. Her dog is also 5 years old, but a lab, and had no issues with other dogs in the past. Okay, this is a very tricky one, right? Mm-hmm. This is a tricky one because I talk a lot about there's a very, very big difference between your dog adding another dog to your pack where it is your dog and adding somebody else's dog that's going to be living with you into your pack, because it's different. No matter what, these dogs are still owned by separate people, and even though they're living under the same roof, they're going to have different rules. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. Now, this is a slightly different situation because this is going to be a employee of this family. Yeah. So they're going to kind of be obligated to some extent to follow some of their rules, right? Yeah. So if they set hard rules as far as dogs not allowed on the furniture or this or that or whatever, that will help a little bit. But assuming this person still has their own living quarters somewhere within the house, that dog is going to be free to do whatever that person deems is okay in those living quarters. Yeah. Right? I get so nervous in these types of situations because you don't have as much control as you need to make sure it's going to go successful. Yep. Right? When I bring a new dog into my house, I have 100% control of the situation. Mm-hmm. Right? I control every single thing that dog does. I control any single way that I need to be able to discipline that dog. Mm-hmm. I control literally everything. Yeah. Right? And you relinquish that in this extent to some degree. Yeah. So the way I would treat this is you have to treat this as if you just had a house guest for a week, right? Except it's a long-term thing, right? Okay. That means all your resources are 100% separate. Mm-hmm. Food, toys, affection. If these dogs are together, there literally cannot be any food out. There literally cannot be any toys out. And there literally cannot be any affection shared amongst the dogs because it's going to take them quite a while to develop a relationship with each other. Right? When they are together, you have to treat it as if you're running a social with two dogs that don't know each other, which means it's supervised. You let them interact, and you don't let it go too long, right? Which means that you do it for an hour supervised, then you put the dogs away. Yep. You do it for another hour, then you put the dogs away. You do it for another hour, then you put the dogs away. And over time, you could allow it for longer and longer periods of time. But in my opinion, you're probably never going to hit a point where these dogs are just going to be completely living together because of the fact that no matter what way you spin it, bless you, no matter what way you spin it, there is always going to be different rules for the dogs, so they won't be able to establish their hierarchy with each other. Yeah. You know? It's just a tough... There's no correct answer for it. It's so... Like, if you look at it, it's so unnatural. You know? It really is, yeah. It's so unnatural. It's like dogs that come and board with us, you know? Like, no matter what we do, we could socialize those dogs properly, right? But we can't have them just together free for all the time. They're not living in the same house still. They still have these associations of what they get away with when they're not around these other dogs. And if those rules are not consistent with each other, there can be problems eventually, you know? Yeah. As far as introducing them, I don't think you need to necessarily do it off-site or anything. Yeah. You just have to make sure you put them together just like I would, again, just like if I were introducing two new dogs at the facility, right? I would have an open area. No. Ooh. Stop. Look at this.
Look at that puppy training.
Perfect puppy training opportunity. So boom. Mr. Waffles over there. Look at his little sad face now. Oops. So Mr. Waffles, hanging out there, decided he wanted to chew on the little cardboard box right there. Because he's being supervised, I was able to mark with no immediately. Because I've conditioned in that word at this point, immediately he stopped when I said no. He said, oh, shit, I'm not supposed to do that.
Yep.
But even though he stopped, I still got up and I gave him a little Caesar poke.
Caesar poke.
Little Caesar poke to deliver the consequence still.
Yeah. The Caesar poke.
Listen, guys, dog training isn't rocket science. No. It's just consistency. That's it. That's why he's on a leash all the time. That's why he's back time. That's why he's learning the ropes of the house. And this is how you create the dog that everybody wants, which is the dog that just knows the rules and doesn't misbehave.
Yeah.
The training will come later. Boom. Look at that. Good job, bud.
Giving us content, Waffles.
That's it. Okay, so you would just treat it as if I were running a social in the facility. So first time you get the dogs together, again, no food, no toys, no affection.
Yeah.
Have your e-collar on your dog. Have your e-collar set up really high in case there's an issue. And just let them interact. You know, if you feel more comfortable using a muzzle for that first interaction, go for it. Literally no problem. But do everything you can to not intervene. Just let them figure it out. You know what I mean? Like if most people would just take a freaking step back and just let the dogs figure it out, 9 out of 10 times it's going to go okay. Especially if you know the other dog is very social and doesn't have any problems, right? And you need to really, really have a good conversation with yourself and with the other person of what is this going to look like? You know? Because it's not going to look like they just live in the same house together.
Yeah.
And everything's fine and everything's dandy, right? You gotta have that. You gotta have that conversation of what is this going to look like? What's our routines going to look like? What's our structure going to look like to make sure there's no problems?
Yep.
Where are there separate areas going to be? Where are we going to be feeding the dogs? Are those areas that we're feeding the dogs places where each individual dog cannot get to the others? You know, like these are just conversations you have to have with yourself to make sure you set it up for success. But the best thing is having a realistic expectation in your head of this is going to look a little different. Planning for how do we make sure that there's no competition over any of the resources. And from there, making sure anytime the dogs are together, it is supervised and you're not doing anything to create problems, i.e. using the resources.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. All right.
That was a good one. I don't think we've ever had that kind of question, actually.
It was from Meshkis's owner.
Oh, nice.
Meshkis.
Yeah.
They moved to Michigan. They moved to Traverse City recently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Which is sweet,
like,
by the way.
Isn't that like right above Detroit? Like kind of.
No, it's a lot further up than Detroit.
Oh,
Traverse City is like 6 hours away from here. It's right before you get to the Upper Peninsula.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's right near Mackinac. It's like an hour
Mackinac Island.
west from Mackinac, I believe.
Oh, Meshkish.
All right. Next question. What do you do when a stray or loose dog approaches you and yours? This is another easy one. You, at all costs, whatever you have to do, make sure contact is not made.
Yep.
Right? That means if you need to carry something with you at all times, if there's a lot of stray dogs, to startle the dog away, like a pet corrector, something to throw at them, a walking stick.
Yep.
That means if you need to kick the dog to get the dog away from you, your job is to protect your dog at all costs. And if it's a dog you don't know what that dog's going to do. And even if the dog was friendly, your dog being on a leash is going to be a very improper social situation. And here's the thing. If your dog sees you letting other dogs make their way all the way up to them all the time, repeatedly, that's how you create dog reactivity and dog aggression. Because they will start handling that if you don't.
Yep.
And that's it. And that's why I get so strict about that. I had a really cool video sent to me. Hang on. From, Ponchki? From Ponchki's owner. She was at the park with Doozy, her dog. Look at this. I reposted it. And she's training Doozy. And suddenly, watch this. Big dog. Did you see that?
Yeah.
She handled that exactly how you need to handle that.
That's perfect, yeah.
Right? So let me demonstrate what she did here. First thing she did. Bam. Dog's coming this way. Whatever. Big dog. It's a giant horse of a Great Dane.
Yeah.
Right? Big dog's coming this way. She immediately, first and foremost, gained control of her dog. Grab the dog by the collar. Whatever you need to do. gain control of your dog, right? Second thing she did is she started the intimidation kind of stuff. That typically will work pretty well with a lot of dogs because most of these dogs running at you, they're not trying to maul your dog or anything, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's still inappropriate, obviously.
Yeah.
And most of them, if you just startle them away, it'll work. So she tried that. Second thing she did, hand motions. Again, doing things to try to scare the dog away, but also if she needed to, making contact to get that dog to back the fuck off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then once situation was under control, go right back to whatever it was that you were doing.
Boom.
Right? Now, let me add a third kind of caveat to this, right? Predict the situations where this stuff is more likely to happen and avoid them.
There you go.
I know places in Cleveland that people love to take their dogs off leash and have no control over them. So I'm not going to intentionally put myself in those situations.
Yeah.
That's it.
Just set yourself up, sir, for success.
Set yourself up for success.
Good job, Punchki's owner.
Right. Let's see, I think we might have one more.
All right. Wait, you're saying I shouldn't take my dog to Edgewater and go off leash?
Yeah, right. All right. Last question here. What are some of the best ways to get dogs the proper stimulation during winter months? Summer, we can get them on long walks and out to populated parks, but can't do that on super cold stretches of the day. This is a simple one. So first off, this particular owner I know is like great from the standpoint of he walks his dog like multiple times every single day, which is awesome, right? I will tell you, I don't do that. I will tell you a lot of my clients don't do that. So first and foremost, if your dog gets a little less exercise than they're used to in the winter months, it's okay.
Yeah.
Let's start off with that here, right? Now, we still want to stimulate them, right? So now we need to figure out ways that we can continue to do so. So one, if we're looking at walking type situations, Home Depot, Lowe's, Tractor Supply, I believe Duluth Trading Company. Like there are a lot of stores out there that are very dog friendly that you could take your dog to and get them exposed to new things. And not only will you be walking around and getting them physically stimulated, but you will get them some environmental stimulation as well by taking them to new places and getting them exposed to stuff, right? Thing number one. Two, take advantage of the fact that it's really cold weather and nobody's out. I do a lot of off-leash winter hikes. I'll go places that nobody fucking goes to, let my dogs off leash, let them run around, let them freaking rip, burn off some energy, and then go home. Bundle up a little extra warm for it. Get some of that kind of stuff in.
Yeah.
Right? Great opportunity to take advantage of the fact that nobody's out, right? Thing number two or three, training is draining, right? Which means that just working obedience commands in the house, doing bed stays, sit stays, down stays, this, that, blah, 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 for extended periods of time, for as long as you would typically go for a walk, will be just as draining as that walk. Right? And keep in mind, even though you're not going for miles and miles and miles, you're still getting all those steps in through the house.
Yeah.
If I were to work up here and for 30 minutes, work a bunch of down stays and bed stays, my dog's going to be pretty tired from that.
Yeah.
Right? Buy a book that's 100 tricks to train your dog and start teaching your dog fun tricks just to burn some mental stimulation. Right? Long bed stays in the house, mentally engaging. Dog puzzles and stuff like that, very engaging. Different enrichment activities, your snuffle mats and your fucking Kongs and this and that, very enriching, right? You got numerous opportunities, right? I think the concern with this person is probably getting the dog exposed to people and dogs, which in that case, like I said, utilize your stores, utilize your pet stores, stuff like that to work around those types of distractions. But aside from that, as far as mental stimulation, the options are endless. Anything training related that's getting your dog thinking, though.
Yep. Dude, you should coin it. Training is draining. I like that.
Dude, there's so many other trainers that use it. That's why I said it.
It's so good.
Yeah. Training is draining.
Is that what you type to them?
Yeah.
That's your response. Training is draining.
Let's see. Oh, actually, we have one more. I have a question for your next podcast. What roles does positive reinforcement play once a dog is fully trained and understands all the commands? It's been 3 years since Tahoe was board and trained. He knows all the commands that I ask of him, but I noticed that in situations with high distractions, he seems to do better with some positive reinforcement. I think what I would like to know is what's the balance in between positive reinforcement and positive punishment once commands are established. Good question. So my first question would be, when you say he does better with the positive reinforcement, do you just mean he's more engaged and more focused, or do you mean he literally won't do it without it? Because first things first, before I'm going to add a lot of the positive reinforcement in, I need to make sure I could still get my dog to do it, especially if they're post-training. Because if we're saying the dog is post-training, the dog literally knows everything, right? But they're choosing not to do it, and I need to use positive reinforcement. At that point, that's a bribe, right? At that point, we are saying, please do it. Please do it, right?
Yeah.
We don't want that, right? So I'm going to make sure I can get the dog to do it first. And listen, there are situations where I'll take my dogs and work them, and if I'm not using positive reinforcement, same deal. They'll listen to me, but it's like they're just kind of right? So I understand that, right? So the balance would be use it where you want to get the desired engagement you need, but don't use it as a bribe. You could use literally as much as you want. If you want to carry around a treat pouch with you all the time, and as long as your dog is going to do the commands regardless, reward them every single time they do something, I have literally no problem with that.
Yeah.
Right? And, you can, if you have a dog that, maybe is a little bit more sensitive or a little bit more fearful, and again, they're compliant, but they're just a little jittery with it, that could help really greatly increase their confidence with stuff, Just make sure you don't accidentally use it as a bribe. And as long as you're not using it as a bribe, you won't have any problems with it, and you can use as much of it as you want to, right?
Yeah.
But just ask yourself that question first. Is the issue he won't do it without it, or is the issue he'll do it, but I would like to see better engagement out of him?
Yeah.
That's it.
Pin drop.
That's the last one. What do you think?
It was good. Those are good questions. We got quite a few that we've never had before.
Yeah, I think it was a Q&A one has been long overdue.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Cool. Hour 15 in. We're going to wrap that up on that. Josh, got anything to add?
No. It was good.
I think it was good. A lot of talking.
It was a lot of talking, but it's pretty cool. It's cool to get these different questions, than our usual. I mean, I'm sure you get the same kind of question over and over all the time.
Typically speaking, yes.
Yeah. So it was cool, to see out of the box questions that I didn't even think about,
yes,
like having another person come in your house with their own dog and stuff. That was really good. So
I would agree.
Yeah. Should I tell them where to find me, or okay?
Tell them where.
Josh Dubay Productions on Instagram. JoshDubayProductions.com.
Dope. Find me at Miracle Canine Training or at David the Dog Trainer. See you guys next time.
See you.